Hey, how's it going? So this morning, it's like really early. I think it's like 6 maybe a.m., which is not when I usually do this, but this is different. This is a Spirit TV critic video, so I haven't done one in a while, not an official one. So before I get started, whoops. I would like you to take a look at my signs. Alrighty. So, whoops. Okay. Oh, come on. I don't want you to do that. Oh, no. Okay, sorry. My cords are gaining autonomy or something. Oh, okay. So, the show I picked, it's a Netflix I guess mini-series from 2014 called Ascension. And why do you think I chose it? The title kind of jumped out at me, and I'm always interested in seeing what people are meaning when they say Ascension. Ah, son of a gun. Okay. So what the premise of this story is, oh, and by the way, remember the sign that says always with the spoilers? That's true. Like, I'm just gonna talk about it, although, you know, it is from 2014, so, you know, if you missed it in the interim between 2014 and now, you're bad, I guess. I'm not going to take responsibility for spoiling something that's that old. Although, I have to unplug a cord. Hold on a second. Okay, maybe you'll behave better there. Okay, so, anyway, it's pretty old, you know. Anyway, I'm glad I got snagged by it. It is really actually a very... I just described it to someone. I said it was a sci-fi biodome, dystopian, Back to the Future style tale narrative. So it's messed up, okay? And it's kind of so perfect now. Like, it has little to do with the woo-woo spiritual ascension stuff. I'm not talking about meditation and yoga here and, you know, Dark Nights of the Soul. Although, Dark Nights of the Soul definitely take place in this story. It's really messed up. So, here's the premise. In the 50s, a space mission to some other planet is conceived because in this story's universe, the Earth needs to find another place for its people to go to because same old story, we've done screwed it up so bad we can't even live here anymore, or that is the projected future. So a mission is sent on a mothership that is built for like a generational family breeding program thing over the trip, because they're going to be gone for, I think, 100 years. And so you're watching this thing, and it's like very... people are still dressed like in the 50s. All the music is like Frank Sinatra. All of the dances are old, and they have like a very regimented system, and it's really advanced for the time. Like, in even in my mind on this side of the screen watching, I'm like, wow, that's like pretty crazy for the 50s. But the thing is, there's a lot of stuff that we don't get told by our government, and You can call this a conspiracy theory if you want, but I have a feeling it's going to become theory actual, because things are going to come out about it that verify the truth of it. And one of those theories is that the government has access to, and has had for like so far back that we will be shocked and surprised to learn, but they've had access to advanced technology, and it's stuff that like ET ships that have crashed, that have been recovered, including remains and or it's my cat, living beings, you know. There's a famous one that was called J-Rod, and he actually ended up like working with the government. So that right there, it's a story, but man, there's a race of ETs that have a domicile, I guess you could say, at the Sandia, New Mexico dark site. I don't know. Well, it's not dark. I mean, we know it's there. It's got a name and stuff. It's a base, but it's doing other stuff than just being a base. Or there's way more to being a like a military base than we've had the privilege of being made aware of. But this Twitter account, there's a race of beings that live at the Sandia site and interact with humans, and their mission here on Earth is to help integrate, or well, the use of telepathy, because that's how, like everything else off this planet, communicates pretty much. And a lot of the things on this planet communicate telepathically, like animals and some people, you know, and there's degrees of that with the people. So like, well, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but anyway, they are, I'm not really sure how to pronounce the name of their race, because it's P''T''N''L, I believe. But they have names that are really similar to J-Rod, the alien I was talking about before, or that extraterrestrial. And they also very much resemble J-Rod. So I'm wondering if this race that, oh wait, let me try to pronounce paternal? I mean, it's all consonants. How do you pronounce that? Consonant apostrophe consonant consonant? P''T''N''L, paternal, I guess. I mean, I don't know what else to do with it, but that is the name of their race. They have some kind of habitation at Sandia. I think it's an Air Force base, and they are like, they're here to educate. And if you go to their site on Twitter, which is at Sandia the Alien, I believe is the name of their account, and what you'll see is that they have conversations with people at all levels of like credibility. Like some people, I don't know, they claim that they're skeptical and they're like argumentative, and those like arguments which sometimes convince people, if they stick around long enough and continue with it, like finally talking to these beings, like knowledge squeaks in or something, and then gradually they begin to accept the idea that there are beings other places than here, and they're intelligent. And I mean, the ships they arrived here on give me an idea of like how vastly more intelligent than us they are in a lot of ways. So I mean, believe it or not, it's up to you, but you can take everything I said and go back and look and research it, and what you'll find will surprise you, because it's like it's real, because I think it like is real. So this story, and these people are, there's a process where people are sort of culled from society, the best possible candidates, and there's all these subplots. But let me finish talking about the ship and the people on it. They are like, I don't know, not communicating with home because they're not catching up on the latest fads or music or anything. I mean, not like, you know, when you're on a space mission, if you're the astronaut, like driving the ship, that you have time for pop music and culture. But this ship has a crew and a vast complement of just passengers that they all have duties and things. Like, everybody does some kind of work to maintain the ship, you know, whatever someone knows how to do. Like, there's medical and there's maintenance and food and clothing and laundering and just cleaning, like everything that is required wherever people live, you know, has to get done on this ship. But not everyone's a specialist and an astronaut. So all of those people, why are they not communicating with Earth and like getting caught up? Like, radio, I believe, can transfer pretty far from Earth location to flying in space location. So this is these people's reality, and they have all of this stuff going on in their lives within the ship, and it's a soap opera. Like, one storyline is a couple of characters, which is Captain Denninger and his wife Viandra, and he's the captain of the ship, and so he drives the ship, or, you know, oversees that, and also oversees the crew complement that is under like the, I don't know, paramilitary-ish sort of ship's crew rule. I don't know how else to describe it. But his wife Viandra is like the social director, but she also has like all of these young ladies under her purview, command. But she has a group, and they're like basically courtesans. They're trained to be like pretty and engaging, and like what do they call that thing when I think it was called like an etiquette school, where you go to learn how to like use table, like where to put table placements for your silverware and that, and, you know, which fork for which food, and how to engage in polite society, which, you know, elite society, I think, is the real meaning of that polite society business. But she, oh my God, I told you not to bother me right now. I left the door open. Go outside. So they, like I said, are basically courtesans. And you know, the thing about this ship with the generational setup, because there's going to be these people on it for so long, they're going to mate and have children. And, well, you know how propagation works. It does the same thing on Earth, right? So that, like, there's this whole world, and then you find out that the ship is not a ship. The ship has never left the ground. It was never meant to. It was an experiment. It was like a, I said biodome because I don't know like a commonly known term for like space biodome, but it's the same concept, where just like here we'll have like these Mars places. There was another show on Netflix actually called Space Force. I think it was on Netflix, that was kind of lampooning the Space Force and the idea of traveling for so long to go to another planet in a spaceship. And it was like Steve Carell and other actors and comedians in the desert or something, and they had these habitats, but, you know, when they're inside of them, it was like, yeah, we're on the ship, we're on Mars, but they could actually open the door and go outside and go to a different dome and be like in a different area of the ship or whatever. It was something where it was like, they were separated from the rest of society and was supposed to be like, we're on Mars, there's no outside world, there's no fast food, there's no telephone, you know what I'm saying? Like, highly technical, stranded camping, space camping. So, this was like that, but the people on the ship were not aware of this to the best of their knowledge for as long as they had been on there, which was enough for young adults like in their early 20s to be talking about their grandparents who were the original people on the mission. So I don't know, a generation, 2 generations, these people had been on this habitat thinking that they were in space on a ship, and they didn't know it was an experiment that they had signed up for. And I started to talk about one of the subplots, and one of the subplots is that in the process of selecting people to be on this mission, they found people's children who were highly adept or intelligent in some way and basically just recruited them off. And as far as the parents knew, the kid just disappeared like a milk box child. But in this case, the government had grabbed them, which makes you think, is that where some disappeared people went? Like, they got snatched up and somehow put on, like, and I'm talking an actual ship here, like completely aside from the show, real disappeared people. I don't think they all get serial killed, you know what I mean? Like, I think, like, people that disappear in national parks, like, that's a very strange disappearance, and I don't think, like, a human sex trafficking ring is collecting people from national parks in the way those people, like, just walk off a path and literally disappear forever to people's knowledge. They got to be going somewhere. So if we're just like wool gathering about it, why not the government has been keeping an eye on them and following them around and using their listening and surveillance technology to just keep track of you? Not like it's hard. We're constantly filling out forms and talking into devices that are recording our every move. It's not that hard to track us really these days. And so, if they wanted to grab someone that they became aware of that was in some way useful, I'm sure they'd term it in a less cavalier way than useful, to be like just stealing people's children and adult people. I'm just speculating. I don't know that any of that's the case, but I mean, I wonder. But so in the story, outside of the ship, like, you don't find this out as the viewer. I don't think I knew it for like a couple, 3 episodes. And then you realize that there are these people outside of the ship that are like running and overseeing this experiment, and one of the runners of it is the son of the original professor that conceived it and got it all rolling with the government and everything. And the funny thing about it is that, like, well, actually it's not funny at all. Well, what I was going to say is that in reality there may well have been ships that we had access to that could go out on such a journey, and we just were not told about it. We were just not told that such technology existed, or I should say we could have not been told about this. I mean, that to me is conceivable, because if you listen closely to like Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong and Sheldon Cooper, what they say finally in their older years when they feel like, I have to say it regardless of whatever consequences that could happen, which I don't know if you're aware of this. This could be relegated to the realm of theory, conspiracy theory, but if you're saying something the government does not want you saying, and they've made you aware of this, and you're deliberately breaking a contract to not open up your mouth and talk about stuff, it's rumored that they will find you and end your life or disappear you. You know, essentially it amounts to the same thing. You are gone from the life you had, and the people that were your family and friends in that life are just like, where did my person go? And you get no answers, and the government loves to neither confirm or deny stuff. So, I mean, it's out there. If we can dream it and think it, there's a high possibility that there's truth to it. So, that in mind, this is what this government is doing with these people. So when you find out that the ship is just like a module that never went anywhere, then you're like, wow, that's messed up. And so things start to go wrong on the ship. Like, I think just natural progression of entropy began to happen. Like, they had their first murder in 100 years. And so what I started to say about the captain's wife on this thing and her little cell of social butterflies is they were like a spy team. Like, there was espionage going on this relatively small ship and community, and she had them out there like red sparrows, basically trained them in like feminine wiles, how to look, how to behave. Sounded like there was some sort of like sexual manipulation instruction involved. But it didn't sound like the girls themselves actually knew like what they were doing, like what information they were collecting. I don't think they knew what they were doing, what was being done with it after it was delivered to Viandra, their captain, I guess you could say. But that is so interesting to me because the captain's wife, Viandra, that is running this crew of women, used to be a hooker, basically herself. And he, elevated her life when he married her, but she still has all of those sensibilities. And she's not faithful to her husband, and there's all of just the regular human, low intrigue of betrayal and secrecy and just what we do. And eventually on that ship, like, people start to investigate things that don't make sense, like places that are like control rooms to nowhere. And then whenever you go in there and try to learn more, the people on the outside of the ship that are actually controlling things will make some emergency somewhere else, so that they have to, the person like investigating the room has to like run off and like leave and forget about it. And then like people will come back and they'll be like, oh, stuff is like totally different in here. How did that change? No one's supposed to be in here. And it turns out that in that room there's a door into the outside world. And isn't that like a terrible way to hide your secret? Like, it's basically just open, and all it takes is the right sequence of events for someone to fumble their way to the truth of what's actually happening. And that does happen. There's a hierarchy on this ship. It's kind of gross. But one of the people from the lower archy is like higher in the lower archy, like big fish in the small low pond. But he's like not a good guy, and he's like mean and resentful and angry about stuff, and he's basically an incel. There's like incel-ish scenes with him in there, and that only makes him more twisted and bitter. And then he like peeps the truth and can't cope with it, can't cope with that reality because it doesn't make sense. And so he goes insane. And then outside of the ship, this I think she's like a psychiatrically trained agent of some sort, but she comes to oversee like what is happening with this experiment, which is costing the real government money. And you know how that goes, like how are we going to pay for it starts coming up, and funding starts to go away, and but that's like that comes in waves when you have something going for generations. So anyway, there's like things breaking down inside the ship, like people starting to distrust each other, especially because of the murder, and there's jealousy and betrayals are found out. And then the crazy guy that, you know, he was like the big fish in the little low pond, he was like the supervisor of like pig poop, which is highly important as a fertilizer and other types of energy creation or whatever. They're not, other than, they don't dwell on it a lot, but pig poop is important, I guess. But, you know, of course, that's going to make him like a really low man. Like, you deal with shit all day, so you are, because we're shitty like that. We will make those judgments against people. And didn't that just sound so dumb? Like, he works in the poop, so, oh, that makes him a poop guy. He's no good. Like, wow, are we that simple? Sometimes. So, anyway, the guy, at first, they have to separate him from everyone else because the people on the ship know that, all they know is that he's like gone insane and he's talking stuff that sounds crazy to them, but he's stumbled upon some things that, like I said, he can't make sense of, but he begins to. And then on the outside, someone comes along from the government to sort of inspect things and to see like, how efficient is this thing we're spending all this money on? And she actually is sort of more in alignment and cahoots really with like the supervisor of the project, but the son of the guy who started it is still running it, and he's like a misanthrope or something, because this woman comes along to inspect things and she actually has to go in, and that's a weird set of circumstances. Like, she can only talk to certain people, so she doesn't reveal where the hell she came from. But there's enough people on the ship that it's possible that one or two people can like show up and you're like, where'd you come from? Well, you know, there's thousands of us, so you don't know everyone. But the guy that they separate because he's saying crazy stuff on the ship, she actually reveals to him, like, you're not crazy, here's what's happening. And then they end up outside the ship, and then he really goes nuts. So it's just like all of these terrible mind warps that like our screen government is doing to Americans, and it's terrible. Like, all of the lying, and it's terrible on the ship, but then you see what's happening outside the ship with like the reality side of the show. It's not too different from the reality on this side of the screen where I'm talking from. So it's just like such a pretzel of truth and fiction. And it's really intriguing. And it's really well done. It was like fun to watch, if disturbing. So there's the subplots are good. Like, the girl that gets murdered is sort of like this young kind of superstar on the ship, and she's beautiful and everybody loves her, men and women, young and old, and she's smart and she's funny and she's snarky, and then she gets dead, but her ghost is wandering around, and there's a girl on there who somehow, the father of the guy who's running the experiment came up with the, like, just stumbled across the knowledge that certain conditions with certain people genetically could be stressed into elevating their consciousness and abilities in a way that they're like psychic and telekinetic and blah blah blah. So the father, the originator of this experiment, somehow stumbled upon the knowledge that this could be made to happen, and that became a goal. And then they finally got it in this little girl, and she's having visions and she's knowing stuff before it happens, and And she doesn't really even understand what's happening to her because there's no one like her on the ship to say, hey, I'm also like a psychic medium and whatever else, and here's what's happening to you. She's just flipping the flip out. Phenomena is happening and all these other people are experiencing it, and like they have no idea for a while that it's because of this child, and they don't know what's happening. They're just like, why is this here? How is this? Why is this? And it's just it's a really good show, actually. It make you feel terrible about your government, but well, didn't you already kind of have an inkling that they're not always the most scrupulous people? And wow, I am so happy that I did this again. I haven't done it for a while. So this show is so instructive in a lot of ways, like in reality, because it illustrates, like, it seems like a blend of truth and fiction with the ship, but mainly what I was concerned with was just the way that everyone was treating everyone, like the people on the ship, the hierarchy and the lowerarchies on that ship that were just as human and messed up in human ways as you would expect, inside and outside the ship. And as usual in one of these situations, the person that sees sense and wants to help bring the reality of the situation to the people on the ship and to the public, because I don't think the public is even aware that this experiment has been going on for 50 years, and it's just such a great, like, think piece. I recommend it. There's not like too terrible violence, there's not gore, it's very thinky, and I kind of like that, and maybe you will too. So I'm gonna include the trailer. I know I'm not fancy, I don't have clips and all that. Honestly, I don't know how to do it, and I don't know what's legal and what's not, so I don't want to be bothered with it. But I will include the trailer and possibly some more information in the information box. But at any rate, that's about all I have to say about it, except that it's a pretty good watch. I would recommend it. I don't know if you can find it in your area. I know that it was on Netflix America, North America, United States, what, like 3 months ago. So I don't know if you can find it. Dig it. It's pretty cool. Thank you and good night.